Tell me, David, tell me about these birds that we've got here to start with.
Birds we've got here, 3 of them are rescue birds. That's the 2 macaws and the little Nande conure there. These are all birds I've rescued in my own right. And Billy is our own bird. We bought Billy some years ago. He's an umbrella cockatoo. And
obviously, looking at them, they've got some obvious issues with feather plucking. I mean, particularly these 2.
Yeah.
And is that something that's very common in birds that have been through a traumatic time and ended up being rescued?
Yes, it is. What's happened with both of these is their owner's circumstances changed, as it does in life. They bought the birds when they were at home all day. They then had to go back to work, and the birds were left on their own all day.
And they get
used
bored.
to company. They get bored, and the first thing we do is pet their feathers.
And how big an issue is in the bird keeping world? You know, neglect, people abandoning animals, because we're so aware of it with things like dogs and cats, but possibly less aware of it in more exotic species?
There are people, not so much abandoning them, it does occasionally happen, but there are people putting them into rescues. And we find, particularly at the moment, a lot of cases, people have got birds, they find they need expensive vet treatment and can't afford it, so they put them into rescue. Okay. So a lot of the birds that we take on in Birdline, which is who I work for, actually come in needing veterinary care.
So tell me about this Birdline then. This is a rescue association?
Yeah, Birdline Parrot Rescue. It's a rescue association. We take on about 1,000 birds a year, so that's on average 3 a day, which is sort
of all species, from sort of
from the small ones,
to macaws.
That's right, yeah.
And that's not you personally taking on 1,000, that's across the country?
Yeah, across the country. It's a nationwide thing. I myself, because I started rescuing birds in my own right, and I filled up, as it were. I've got 21 birds of my own now.
And is that just at home?
Yes, that's just at home. Yeah.
And do you have an aviary, or do these just
no?
Live around?
They're all indoors. They're all around the house, and they're all out of their cage all day. And you know, it's just mayhem, really. But it's fun.
Sounds like it. Yeah.
I'm retired, so I'm home all day.
So that's your real focus in life, is looking after those birds.
Yeah, it is.
And Parrotland, is that right in saying that's the Swindon sort of branch of the association?
No, that's my own personal website, Parrotland. I am an ACO for the North Wilts and South Gloucestershire area, including Bristol, and I've got a panel of just soon to be 14 safe houses, which now I'm responsible for. Safe houses perform a very valuable role in the organisation, and any birds we take in get put to a safe house. The safe house then gets to know the bird, really work with the bird, and then do an evaluation which goes on the website for people to apply for the bird.
And then to rehome them, because rehoming must be quite tricky. I mean, in a way, rehoming a dog, fairly straightforward, isn't it? But you're going to need someone who really knows what they're doing to take on a bird, or am I wrong in that? Could anyone really take on one of these birds if they've got the commitment?
Pretty well anyone can take on a bird if they've got the commitment, because there's always plenty of help available. You know, by phone, on the forums, there's always people willing to give advice.
And are they difficult pets to look after, generally?
They're not difficult pets to look after, they just need a lot of time. No, they're flock birds, basically. I mean, all birds are flock birds, and if you take them away from their flock and put them into a home, then they regard the family as their flock, and they just need the family around them.
And if the flock nip off to work each day, then they're going to
get bored. Yeah. And once they start plucking their feathers, as these 2 have done, this one near the top and that one all down her chest, in a lot of cases it becomes habitual. Then it's just like biting your nails, and it's very difficult to stop.
And we see this in a lot of animals that are in stressful situations. They'll do what's called a stereotypic behaviour, like feather plucking, or with horses you get when they do the sort of weaving or the crib biting, and you see in zoos, you see animals, you know, the leopards and things pacing up and down. So it's a very similar kind of thing.
Very similar.
Yeah. And what about other sort of more physical health problems? I mean, we were talking earlier about aspergillosis. And
poor Billy here. We woke up a week ago, went down and got him out of his cage, and he was wheezing quite badly. So I planned to get a nebulizer out and put him on a nebulizer for half an hour. But in the time it took me to get the nebulizer, I wasn't happy. He seemed to be getting worse. So we rushed into an avian vet, we put a telescope down his throat, and he's got aspergillosis, which is a fungal growth.
I mean, it's a fungal growth that we see in all animals, really. I mean, it's something that affects horses and all sorts of things. So, and in birds, it particularly causes these upper respiratory tract infections.
That's right. Birds have got a very sensitive respiratory system and very narrow tubes, and a bit of fungal growth there can block the tube, which is what happened with Billy. He's actually got a plastic tube in through his ribs on his left-hand side to help him breathe, and he's been on a fairly expensive drug to help reduce the fungal growth. And
in general, would you say parrots and other exotic birds are expensive to look after? I mean, you talked about going to a specialist avian vet, and I think that's really paramount to their care. But does that mean that everything costs a lot?
It does, but to be honest, I've not insured any of my parrots because I generally find that the very rare occasion I need to take them to an avian vet, now I can fund it out of my own resources. I mean, obviously.
So you say that you don't need to take them that often to the vet, but when you do, I guess it can get quite expensive.
Yeah. I mean, it's 1,200 quid for Billy this time, you know. So
so
it's quite a bit, you know. But it saves his life, and he's part of the family, you know. So we're his flock, and they're my flock as well.
And what about just looking in a broader context? We saw in the film earlier about the issues with parrot trafficking and the abuses that go on out there in other countries. Is that something you're involved with or aware of?
No, because it didn't affect us in the UK very much, because we've now got a total ban on imported birds except for pet birds.
So you can import a bird that's already is a pet, but any wild-caught birds
you can't import. No, it's a total ban in the UK and in fact in most of Europe.
And do you still get birds sort of coming in despite that, or?
Occasionally you get some that are smuggled in, but it's reducing. However, that was in Paraguay on the film, and the birds are taken across the border into North America, and it's easy then because they're just bunged in the back of a van, all crammed in cages, and just driven, you know, whereas obviously to get them into the UK, you've got to sort of, you know... It's
a bit more, you can't really hide a parrot in your luggage, can you?
No, that's right.
I mean, yeah, it's an interesting sort of problem, but coming back to them as pets then, I mean, and from a veterinary perspective, viewers with a very long memory will remember a long time ago in this Vets in Practice series, one of the very first cases I did was chasing some parrots around somebody's house trying to clip their nails, and it was quite a comedy sketch in the end. We ended up chasing these parrots around, trying to get them off the ceilings, everything to trim their nails, and it was a bit of a bloodbath by the end of it. So I guess you need to have vets who know what they're doing. But do you do a lot of that kind of stuff yourself at home?
Yeah. Clipping and nails we do myself, and I've got a vet nurse daughter who specialises in avian and exotic, so she helps as well. She's pretty good. And the routine things we do, as I say, ourselves in-house. Going back to aspergillosis, if I can just touch on it though, the most common cause of aspergillosis is poor quality seed. And
so it's husbandry and feeding and
that's right. In this day and age, we all want to save money, so we all go out and buy the cheapest seed, and you know that's often a false economy.
Well, it's the same with lots of things, isn't it? You get what you pay for, and I think with a lot of exotic animals, their health really boils down to their environment and their feeding. It's not generally sort of exotic health problems. It's quite mundane things caused by food or humidity or temperature, isn't it? Anyway, that's a fascinating discussion, and thank you ever so much for coming in, David, and for showing us these beautiful birds. And if people want to get more information about the work you do and perhaps are interested in taking on a rescue parrot, where would they be best to look?
Just Google Birdline Parrot Rescue, and that'll take you right where you want to go.
Brilliant.